morning, I'll just start wading through stuff, what we have. So the aggravated assaults, we had a shooting that happened this morning. That's probably our really one big thing out of the aggravated assaults anyway. That was about 3:40 a.m. We had a call of a guy that showed up at a hospital with a gunshot wound to his abdomen. Doctors initially, or at least told the officers, that it was a non-life-threatening injury. Once they started, there was, so they had two guys that brought the victim to the hospital. They stuck around, so the officers talked to them. We believe this happened in the 4600 block of West Oleana Place, Olleanna, I believe is the spelling. The victim didn't give a whole lot of information. The two friends or acquaintances that brought him there, they claim not to have seen what happened, but just ended up hearing a noise and then found that he had the wound and took him to the hospital. So we really don't have much more at this point in time. We'll be working to try to talk to the victim, see if they want to provide any more information, and obviously detectives will be looking into this. Sounds like there may have been a few other people at that home, and so we've got some other work to do to try to track down other people, but really we just don't have a whole lot of information about what took place yet.
Do you have a cross street for that one?
I don't know if this has it. Let's see. Well, Oleana and Shane Place, or Douglas Place. That's about the best that I have. So.
You said 4600 block.
4600 block. Yep, that's right.
Do you have any age on the victim?
The victim is 18-year-old man from Sioux Falls.
Doesn't appear to be self-inflicted.
We don't know. At this point, we just know that he had the wound. He claimed that somebody else was involved, but we just don't have enough information at this point to say one way or another.
And was it just one bullet wound?
Yes, just one shot.
Was it fairly recent, or did he show up after today?
No, it was something that had just happened.
Okay.
It's pretty typical for crimes like that to happen, where somebody with a gunshot wound shows up in the hospital, or is that kind of just happens every once in a while?
It happens every once in a while, and usually, not all the time, but there are some times when victims show up and they've been shot and they just don't want to do anything. They don't want to provide any details or any information, and those types of crimes are very difficult to investigate, especially when you don't get that cooperation from the victims. It happens. I mean, that's probably the best way to say it. It's not an everyday occurrence, thankfully. A lot of the victims, we've seen cooperation in the past, so it's not necessarily that everybody that gets brought there by friends doesn't want to talk. That's not the case at all. Sometimes the friends see that the victim's injured and just want to do what they can to help and get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. So there's a lot of different factors. It's certainly not new. We've seen that before, but it's, I don't know. Yeah, how's that for an answer? I ramble. Okay, so moving on, we had another one that happened this morning. This was about 3:30 a.m., and this was at a gas station at 41st Street and Western Avenue. It started off as basically a shoplifting. We had a guy that was in the store that grabbed a bottle of liquor and went running outside to his car. The employee chased after him, and the suspect ended up bumping the victim with the car. The victim then jumped on the hood, and then the suspect drove away, and the victim was still on the hood. Let me see if I have a distance. He said they went north on Western Avenue. Looks like he was on the hood of the vehicle for about half a block, and then the car slowed down, and the victim was able to get off the car safely, or kind of just slid off the hood. So no injuries, no serious injuries to the victim. Don't have a whole lot of information on the suspect, but I think they have surveillance at that store, so I'll be working to get a copy of that video.
How old was the victim?
Victim is 29.
Where was that? Say one more time.
41st Street and Western Avenue?
And it's a male, right?
Yes.
And just to clarify, the victim was the person who was working at the gas station?
Yep, the victim was the employee, yep.
Do we have a description of the vehicle?
Let's see. A newer, small, dark-colored SUV. That doesn't give much of a description, but that's all we have, so.
That was around 3:40 or 3:30.
3:30 is when we had the phone call, so maybe, 3:15 or so is probably when it actually took place.
What kind of liquor was stolen?
That was a bottle of Jägermeister.
It's just one bottle.
Just the one bottle, yep. Anything else on that one? Okay. That's pretty much it. We had domestic, a couple of reports, just some information basically on a couple of different cases, but no crimes on those. One of them I don't have any reports on. That's probably the big things out of the aggravated assaults. The burglaries, no arrests out of those. Actually, one of them was a garage. Somebody entered a garage, was arrested out of that. But it was houses and apartments that were basically entered, but nothing high dollar taken. The disorderlies, we did have a guy that exposed himself. There was a woman that was inside her apartment. Her dog kind of started barking or growling, and then she saw a guy at the window that was exposing himself and fondling himself. She thought this was something similar, the same person, as she had a similar incident sometime just a few, I think, days ago. So she thought it was the same guy, but white man, 5'10", heavy set. That's all she had for a description. So he was gone by the time we arrived. That's pretty much it for the disorderlies. A lot of other trespassings and some other reports in there. The embezzlement, that was a car that was loaned out. The family offenses and disputes, really nothing big out of those. Most of those are reports. The frauds, we had a little bit of kind of our normal stuff, credit cards, ID thefts, wallets taken, some checks as well. Larcenies, I didn't hear of anything big. I didn't have a chance to review those. Narcotics were meth primarily, no big quantities. Rape, both of those are reports. The sex offenses, those all four are reports. No arrest on any of those. Nothing big from the simple assaults. Nothing suspicious from any of the unintended deaths. The vandalisms, kind of a little bit of everything. Some cars, quite a few cars were damaged. Somebody had some planters broken, plexiglass broken. Nothing high dollar that was taken or damaged. The weapons violation, one of them, that was a traffic stop, and that was on Saturday morning just before 1 a.m. And that one, the passenger, when they went to stop, it was a traffic violation. The passenger took off running. There's a couple officers that caught him. He had a loaded gun with him, and he wasn't supposed to have one. So he was arrested as a possession of a firearm by a former violent offender. As near as we could tell, the gun wasn't used to threaten anybody, wasn't used to threaten the officers. And then there was also some marijuana that was in the car. So the driver and the passenger were both arrested for the marijuana.
Do you have their names?
What's that?
Do you have their names yet?
Yeah.
But you said it was just a small amount.
Yeah, it was Yeah, misdemeanor amount. They said it wasn't for medical marijuana or medical use. So the driver, his last name is Adris, Adris. First is, I'll spell this, Selase. Middle is Kuku. He's 26 from Sioux Falls. And his charges were the possession of marijuana, paraphernalia, and having an open container in a motor vehicle. The passenger, his last name is Abdul Qadir, Abdulkadir. First is Habib, Habeeb. Middle is Daud, and he's 21 from Sioux Falls. He had the marijuana, paraphernalia, fleeing police, and then possession of a firearm by a former violent offender.
Is Abdul Qadir, is that all one word, or is it separate?
Our system doesn't do spaces or hyphens, so I just have it down as one. Let's see, so we had another traffic stop, and that was basically the same thing. That was a possession of a firearm by a felon. I think that was the passenger. Yeah, that was the passenger in the car. So that was another traffic stop. Officers found the passenger had a handgun with him. He also had a scale that had some cocaine or was it cocaine? I think it was. Let me see here. Might have been meth. It was cocaine, sorry. So that scale had some cocaine residue on it. So he had possession of a firearm by a felon, and then possession of a firearm in commission of a felony, which is the cocaine. And then the controlled substance and paraphernalia. Do you want his name? Okay. His last name is Hill, Hill. First is Cameron, Camyron. Middle is Sean, Sean. And he's 20 from Sioux Falls. And that was on... That was Sunday, just about 7 p.m. And
What was the location on that?
the traffic stop on that one, that was... That was in the 1200 block of North Prairie Avenue.
And can we get the time and location for the first one as well?
Yeah, so the first one, that was, excuse me, on Saturday morning, that was just about 2 a.m. And that traffic stop happened. It was near Sioux Street and Cleveland Avenue. And the last weapons violation, that was basically some found property. That was a shotgun that was found, or a shotgun barrel that was found. So no suspects on that one, no arrests on that one. That's all I have, unless you guys have anything else. Okay, thanks.